Good morning. It's a nice morning here, time for our morning chat. So, there were a lot of comments that keep saying the same thing, that the UN is useless, bad things happen, and nothing gets done. So, let's talk about that kind of calmly because the answer is more interesting than people would like to think. The first big misunderstanding is that the UN is not a world government. And that is quite important. They don't have a global army. They don't make laws the way that countries do because countries have sovereignty, which means that they allow to, within the borders of that country, make laws and enforce those laws. It cannot just kind of swoop in and go and fix something in a country which is wrong. The UN is basically a meeting place. That's what it is. It's where countries talk, argue, negotiate, and sometimes they even agree. And that word agree is doing a lot of heavy lifting. So, why are actions so difficult for the UN? For the UN to actually enforce something seriously, like sanctions or military action, the big powers all have to agree. And that's where things normally come unstuck. The UN Security Council has 5 permanent members: the US, Russia, China, the UK, and France. Basically, the winners of World War II. Yes, I know the World War was a long time ago and a lot of things changed since then, but that's at the moment what we have, and it's very difficult to unstuck that. Any one of them can veto a decision. So, in other words, they can say that this decision is made, I don't agree with it, I'm using my veto, and you're not allowed to do that. So, if even one major power says no, nothing happens. So the question is, why was it designed that way? And here's the part that people don't really like, but they do need to hear. The UN was designed this way on purpose. After World War II, the idea was that it's better to stop big powers from fighting each other, even if that means that the UN sometimes can't act. And in other words, peace between superpowers was prioritized over perfect justice. So is the UN useless? Well, not really. The UN is good at a lot of things. They're good with humanitarian aid. They're great with peacekeeping with consent. With consent means that where people agree that they actually need to go and do the peacekeeping. They're very good at setting global norms, like, for instance, the Universal Bill of Human Rights. They're very good with slowing conflicts down. In other words, with interfering, going in and speaking to people and trying to slow down the conflict and get peace. But it's very bad at enforcing powerful countries to do things that they don't want to do. So, why does it feel especially broken at the moment? And this is an important question because the world is more divided again. We have the global north, the global south, and these two are always bickering at each other because the big powers don't trust each other. So in the UN, vetoes keep on flying and the UN keeps on getting stuck. The uncomfortable truth is that when people say that the UN does nothing, what they really are seeing is this: the UN reflects the world as it is and not the world as we wish that it was. We would rather have the world peaceful. We would rather see big countries not bullying small countries. We would rather see things happening in a way where, if there's human rights abuses in a country, that the global world does something about it. Not slowly, but quickly. So it's frustrating. That's totally fair. But the UN isn't weak by accident, it's limited by design. And that's why moments like Venezuela feel so completely unresolved.